Hey, thank you so much for your comment. So I would actually agree with the first sentence that Genesis 1:1 through 2:4 is a different creation account than Genesis 2:5 and onward. My contention is that they're not contradictory, but rather complementary. One of the reasons why I think this, and one of the biblical arguments I would make for evolutionary creationism, is that Genesis 2:5 has a Toledot formula. So the phrase, "these are the generations of," is referred to by biblical scholars as a Toledot formula, which occurs 11 times in Genesis as a kind of structural marker indicating new events, or at least a new subject. This is particularly the case in narrative context, as every time it appears in a narrative context, it indicates a new sequence of events. So Dr. John Walton and Dr. J. Richard Middleton, among other biblical scholars, have noted this to be the case. So the fact that we have a Toledot formula in Genesis 2:5 indicates to us that everything after this verse is happening after the prior verses, since that's how the formula functions in Genesis. This would mean that the creation count of Genesis 2:5 and onward is different, yes, because it's talking about different events. It's talking about stuff that happened after the 7 days of creation, which means that the humans of Genesis 1 and Adam and Eve of Genesis 2:5 and onward are different. And Dr. Michael Heiser notes that there is no garden in Genesis 1, there is no Adam and Eve present in Genesis 1, the scope by which humans are discussed is more general, etc. Now, another biblical reason that I have that convinced me of evolutionary creationism was death in the garden. So Joshua John Vinny has his PhD, he teaches Hebrew at university, and his doctoral dissertation on death in the garden is freely available for people to download and read. Ben Stanhope has noted that Dr. E gives the biggest overview of the Hebrew words translated subdue and rule in Genesis 1 of any biblical scholar. And Dr. E argues that this is military language indicating a warlike conquest on creation. He gives a lot of evidence in his dissertation, but the language suggests that animals and humans were in conflict, and that God tells humans to master and dominate creation, including the animals. This would indicate death and probably eating meat. I believe in the dissertation he also talks about the idea that Adam and Eve were mortal. He's not the first to note this. Faithful scholars have been noting this since the 80s, but a lot of people cite his work because of how comprehensive it is. So pre-Adamite people and death in the garden were the biggest biblical reasons I had for leaving young earth creationism. I talk about this and more in my ongoing series of articles that I have on medium.com, and I am going to make some revisions to those though, because even though I still hold to my position, I did make some mistakes. All that said, make sure you guys comment and let me know what you think, and follow for more content like this.